A warm welcome to today's CERN Alumni Virtual Company Showroom. For those that don't know me, I'm Rachel and I'm head of CERN Alumni Relations. We're delighted to welcome Hyperplan to today's Virtual Company Showroom. So Hyperplan is a company which offers agro-food actors a collaborative data platform designed for comprehensive crop monitoring and supply chain optimization. And they do this by using remote sensing and weather data combined with statistics and machine learning tools to assess and anticipate crop growth, yields, human events, and more in order to provide their customers a data-oriented global vision, allowing better decision-taking and anticipation of needs and resources. And I'm delighted to introduce our speaker today from Hyperplan. It's CERN alumnus Mathieu Morinot. We're thrilled to welcome you today. So Mathieu is an R&D director at Hyperplan and is in charge of the scientific projects developed there. Mathieu worked at CERN for 10 years with CEA Saclay at the University of Maryland and ETH Zurich, CMS teams on standard model, exotic physics, and supersymmetry measurement and searches. That's a tongue twister. He left the academic field for industry in 2018 and joined a video game studio as data scientist director before joining Hyperplan. Mathieu has a PhD in particle physics. So without further ado, Mathieu, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Rachel, and thank you everybody for joining today. And thank you for the invitation, of course, to present Hyperplan to the Virtual Company Showroom. So my first introduction slide was actually who I am, but you already made the job, Rachel. So indeed, I spent 10 years at CERN between 2028 and 2018. And afterward, I left the academic world for more applied research, first on video game when I tried to identify human behavior and habits within video games. And since November 2021, I joined Hyperplan as Rachel said, as a R&D director. So I'm now doing mostly team management, but I also have my hands quite dirty because I'm still working with a lot of code and data. I'm not just doing management. So today I will present to you what Hyperplan is doing and what are the problems that we consider at Hyperplans. So first, one word about how it has been founded. So Hyperplan's founders are three old consultants from the McKinsey company, namely Ruben Sabat, which is our CEO, Victor Lamandin, our Chief Product Officer, and Jean-Baptiste Kopecki, our CTO. They worked at McKinsey during between 4 and 10 years, and at the end of their years in McKinsey, they worked a lot on the supply chain expertise in the food industry. So they were quite aware of what were the problems of the agro-food supply chain and the agro-food industries before creating Hyperplan. And this is actually why they created Hyperplan, because at some point they thought that they can do things a bit differently and probably more useful for agro-food business and companies. So the problem that we want to solve at Hyperplan is that when you speak about what are the difficulties to the food chain industrials and actors, they tell you that the agricultural production has been always volatile, of course, because you can have more or less rain, more or less sun, etc. But adding to that, on top of that, the climate change, then it becomes more and more volatile. So those are some testimonies from agro-food peoples. And for example, one of them told us that they used to have 1 hot year out of 5. Now it's 4 out of 5 due to the climate change. And in addition to that, in the world, in Europe in general, but also in the world, people want also to reduce the use of phyto products. And this is also introducing a lot of vulnerability in the supply chain. So this is something that they have difficulties to manage when they are doing their supply chain operations. In addition to that, they also have some demands that becomes more and more complex because there are more and more customers and consumer scrutinies. So it becomes complicated to do the things manually. And this is why they also want to more and more automatize the actions regarding the supply chain in the agro-food industry. So if we can resume that, we can summarize that as I lack visibility on the agricultural production while all my operations highly depend on it. And this is the problem that we want to address at Hyperplan. So our solution is a web application called Faco with the idea to support the food chain industrials with one single site where everything is accessible and available. And this is to capture from this application. So on the top left, you can see, for example, all the fields in the west area of France that we identify, and we identify clearly what are on those fields on almost real time. So you can see meadows, you can see wheat, you can see maize, and each of the color there is one different culture. And this allows the people, I will come back to that later, but this allows agro-food actors to address part of the problem. In addition to that, we are also giving them some predictions. For example, on the bottom right, we are trying to give them also a prediction on what will happen in the next or a bit more longer future. For example, when the harvest will happen, at which week, which allows them to anticipate a bit more the needs for the companies, for the harvest, and for the movement of the agricultural products. So the Hyperplan history started in June 2021. In September 2021, we identified clearly what were the needs from the agro-food actors, and we did a research paper, which is a white paper actually, that we published to summarize our conclusions. In November 21, we gathered the first member. I was the sixth one. And in January 2022, we already had a first feature to identify the surface of the crop surfaces across the full France territory. In June 2022, we had 4 industrials that subscribed to our solution, and also subscribed to all the products that we have, including also an harvest forecast that helped them to anticipate when the harvest will take place. In November 2022, Hyperplan grew up to 15 members, and we ended a seed funding tour which was something like 4 million euros, something like that. And in June 2023, we increased our functionalities with more detailed, those are more detailed products, let's say. Those are few examples on what we had. So we, for example, were able to estimate the crop yields for the given year, which is quite interesting for plenty of actors as well, to anticipate how much grain they will get at the end. And we were also able to deep a bit into the details of the several crops and do some phenology studies, remote phenology studies across the full France. And in addition to that, we expanded a bit the product by starting to work at the European scale and working in Germany. So currently, the Hyperplan teams is 20 size teams. Actually, we are 19 persons right now, and 2 people will join us soon. So we have the 3 co-founders, Chief Executive Officer, Chief Product Officer, and Chief Technical Officer, which don't do just management, but as well they are getting their hand a bit dirty as well. We have 3 sales managers in order to sell the product. 3 product manager and 1 CSM, which is, I think, custom success manager that are in charge of the product management and to do the link with the customers. We have 1, soon 2 front-end developers to make our application quite user-friendly and pretty fancy, and actually they are doing a really good job. 3 backend developers that build all the backbone of our application as well. Actually, those are also doing a really good job. Everybody is doing a good job. And 2 data engineers that are in charge of all our data management. So they send the data to the backend, then that goes into the application. And they also help the data scientists, including myself, to get the proper data, do some quality checks, etc., etc. And the scientific core of Hyperplan is composed by 3, soon 4 data scientists, including myself. And we have 1 PhD candidate, which is part-time at Hyperplan, and the other time at the CSB on ERA, which are French labs specialized in vegetal monitoring from using remote sensing. And that candidate is that PhD candidate is looking at what we can do in the future with new technologies. We have some key partnerships for the data. We are working a lot with the ESA and the CNES as well, even if it is set up in the research partnerships that you know pretty well. For the weather data, we are using some private companies' data from MeteoBlue. And we also have a look at hyperspectral data, which is a kind of spectrogram satellite that is able to do some spectroscopy from a satellite. And actually, their logo is not visible, but it is called Pixel for the record. And we also have some research partnership, both private and public. So we have some agronomics partnership with Arvalis and Terrinovia, which are French private labs that are experts on the major crops agronomics. The CESBio and the ONERA, which are public academic research labs specialized in remote sensing and let's say crop monitoring and biochemical measurements from remote sensing, and the CNES, of course, for the satellite data. So the main features that Hyperplan have is not necessarily in the order of importance, but we are able to provide to our customer both an historical, an in-season, and a prospective crop rotations or crop surfaces across the territories that we are looking at. So currently France and Germany, soon Spain and Italy as well. We are providing, as I said before, an harvest forecast, an incision detection of the events that can happen in the field. For example, the sowing, we are able to detect it for several types of crops, for several species. We're able to detect the harvest as well. So those are quite important for the people to know if the crops are late or in advance, or if some weird things are happening on several areas. And that goes as well in the quality risk monitoring to make sure that, for example, there was some heavy rainfalls and then the crops just died in the field, then people planted something else. This is something that we have to monitor as well. We are also able to detect the phenological stages at the parcel level. So within the field, for example, we are able to detect the flowering of the wheat, because I learned that wheat is also flowering, not only flowers, but wheat is also flowering. And we are also doing some yield estimation in order to complete the vision that actors can get. So with the yields and the surface, they know how much grain they will get at the end of the agricultural campaign, and the harvest forecast and phenological stage detection is able to tell them if it will be the harvest will be late or a bit in advance for this year. In the next feature, we are scaling up to new countries. We will assess a bit more the crop quality. That is a bit more complicated, but it is quite important because companies are interested to know if the grain will be usable for human food or if it has to be done scaled to animal food. It's not the same quality. We are also working on the identification of subspecies. For example, the maize, you can use it for the silaging, meaning for animal food, but you can also use it for human consumption. So this is not exactly the same, but this is the same species, but not exactly the same use and subspecies. So we are trying to identify that, and we are also doing some continuous development on the specialty crops that we have, namely the wheat, the barley, maize, and in a lower scale, sunflower and rapeseed. So to do that, we are using several technologies, and the first and most important one are the satellite data provided by the ESA Sentinel missions, which are free of charge data. Everybody can use that. It is also made for private companies. It's made for research. It's made for actually, if you want to look at those, you can. And they provide. They have 7 constellations. But not constellations, but missions with up to 2 satellites. And we are using 2 of them. The first one provides us optical and infrared data, which are useful for crop identifications and management. Not management, but monitoring. And the second one is a radar satellite, which is able to help to identify what are crops or trees, and also some physical information, such, for example, the density of the field on the crop on the field, and if there were some changes on the crops or not by using interferometry measurements. So you have on the top right an example of radar data. I took an images from the Alps and Geneva. You can recognize the Geneva Lake. So this image corresponds, for example, of what is changing a lot and not, and the more yellow you are, the less it changes. And of course, you can recognize the mountains, the cities, and what is changing a lot are, of course, the water and the fields that are moving from one picture to another. Well, on the bottom right, you can also see some optical data here. So this is a parcel, a field that we monitored precisely to understand what was going on. And actually, the parcel was just separated in 2, but it gives you an overview of what type of monitoring and what type of data we are looking at. So we are looking at the field for several dates. One of the date is a bit, I don't know if you can see my mouse. One of the date is a bit cloudy, so you can see the clouds as well, which is noise for us, but we have to live with that. And you can see the evolution of the field across the different images that were taken by the satellite. We're also using weather data, so temperature, rainfall, radiation, etc. This is pretty useful because we are working with crops, and crops are quite sensitive to all those environmental data. So this is, for example, an example of the cumulative temperature that we have across years between the 1st September of one year and it goes up to the next 1st September for different years. So it allows us also to compare if a year was a bit warmer, a bit rainy, and to anticipate a bit more what would be the development of the crops within the years. We're also using European research joint center data, namely the soil texture, the soil nature, which are quite important to understand why, for example, the yields are a bit lower in that area and not in the other area. And we are also using field data provided by our customers because they know much better than us what is going on their sites. So I mean, for several fields. So we rely to them to give us some sowing harvest date because we can train models, but we cannot have the truth from satellite data. And in terms of code, etc., so I just did a quick summary of what are the technologies that we use. So we're using mostly Python, Vue.js for the platform, some SQL code as well for the database. And in terms of data algorithm, it's actually you can find all those algorithms and type of codes at CERN. It was not a huge transition for me to move to Hyperplan. So we are using Bayesian frequency statistics, neural networks, time series analysis, of course, expert rules coming from the field, and as well min fits. We are not using root, but min fits we do, and we are using a lot of common sense. That is, I would say, our first algorithm. In terms of technical means, we rely mostly on cloud computing. So we are using AWS, OVH, and GCP computation grid that we made ourselves. It's not at the level of the CERN one, but it works pretty well. And we have also 2 GPU machines in our office at Paris because it's quite expensive on the cloud. So to give you a use case example of what I presented before, we can, for example, imagine that we have a malting plant that wants to anticipate the barley production yields and the quality risk than they have in their catchment area in order to maybe order some grain from outside areas, or maybe to estimate that there would be too much grains from the areas. So that is important for them. So for them, we will provide, of course, the surface, the barley surface in their catchment area, the yields, etc., etc. And we are able also to distinguish between the barley that is usable for brewery and malting whiskies, and the one that is more suitable for animal food. We can also think about, for example, a trader that is using Hyperplan to estimate the yield and the grain, the productions, in order to make its market scenario. So we will use all the information provided by Hyperplan to estimate all the numbers that he will have probably sooner using Hyperplan than the one he would have if he's not using Hyperplan. That's convenient to anticipate a bit better the market and the need of not the needs, but well, yes, the needs of trucks, the needs of harvest machines, the needs of silos that cost a lot when you open, for example, or when you order some trucks and you don't need them at the end. So this is an optimization of all the means that you would need in your market. And in addition to that, you can also consider some usefulness for a seed company that does not really know where, for example, maize will be sowed in the next campaign. So with Hyperplan, we are able to give them some information about that. So to do that, our jobs is to secure their supply chain at the best cost and quality. So we monitor everything in a season for any supply territory, and we react quickly in case we identify, for example, crop damage, or if we identify that there will be some delay in the harvest. We also try to optimize and reduce the environmental impact. So this is what I told just before with the trucks, for example, just to make sure that we do not overfeed the means that we will need to treat and gather all the agricultural products. And we also monitor the crop quality in the life cycle seasons in order to make sure that, for example, people are using the best practice within the company area or within the country. This is also true, for example, with the I don't know the word in English, the PAC, the Politique Agricole Commune. For example, people have to fulfill some obligations, and we are able, in some extent, to identify those and tell to the people, careful, you are not working with the proper rules. So to give you an idea of where our clients are, actually I was not able to give you the names, but our clients are mostly in France right now, and we have one in Germany, but we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 6, 8 clients right now, and hopefully we will grow up soon. It's just a small part of the clients that are reachable by Hyperplan. So to give you a more let's say not commercial vision, but a market vision. The vision that we want to address is a 40 billion euros market. So we want to target, of course, the seed companies, for example, what is called the input years, which is around 5 billion company, a total addressable market of 5 billion euros. We will gather as well, mostly those right now, the aggregators, meaning the cooperatives that gather the grain from the farmers. And this is also something which is close to 5 billion euros total addressable market. And thereafter, in the future, we will try also to target the food companies to secure the supply chain. For example, what I said about the maltering plant before, and the retailers at the end of the chain. The idea is to really unify the supply chain optimization for all the actors of the food chain, from the field up to the retailers. So our impact is can be mostly measured in the equivalent CO2 tons. The idea is to reduce, of course, the transport intensity, the means, the energy intensity that you would need, for example, to dry up the grain. If you know that you can maybe harvest it a bit later because it is really sunny and you can just let the grain dry in the fields. And most important, we really want to avoid the food losses, because it's something like between 5 and 10% of food losses within the fields, because the plants, the food plants are full, and then there is not enough place and not enough means to make the grain usable. So this is something that we want to avoid as well. So we expect to avoid 3 to 4 million tons of CO2 equivalent per year in 2025, and support, of course, the resilience of the food chain with against the volatile conditions. In terms of internal organization, this is a quite harsh transition, but we are a fully remote company. We still have an office in Paris for people that would like to work sometimes in the office. So we have people working across the full France and Spain. For example, here I'm in Brittany. There are some of my colleagues which are in Paris, one which is close from Grenoble, the other ones in the southwestern France, and one of my colleagues is as well in Spain. So very scattered everywhere. We are doing common brainstorming and team building every month in a single pace, to make sure that we still keep the links between each other. Of course, we can also do some partial teams meetings and workshop with few people several times in a month if needed, and that is always nice to see the people in real life rather than in front of your camera. And we are also doing a full company gathering every 3 months in sometimes in fancy place in order to discuss more market, more strategy problems and visions, as well as doing some huge team building events. We are working with an agile team organization, and we, if possible, do some collegial decisions. Sometimes we have, of course, to take a decision at the higher level, but we are doing the things collegially and not top bottom. In terms of recruitment status, we just closed a recruitment sequence among all teams, but it does not necessarily mean that we won't look for anybody in the next months. Not because people are leaving, but we had a few people leaving for health reasons, not because they were not unhappy. And sometimes we have some can I say that? Non prévu in French. I'm sorry, I don't forget the word in English. But unseen needs that we have to fulfill. So we may open some recruitments maybe soon or not soon, that I cannot tell right now. In terms of processes, we have 3, sometimes up to 4 meetings, but it's pretty rare, with the relevant leaders and co-founders. For example, for the data science team, it would be myself, our CTO, and either the CEO and the CPO. We are usually for I speak about the technical team. We are looking for developers, but also data engineers and data scientists. And there is no need to have any experience in agro world for the technical position. I did not know anything about agriculture before, and I think it's still the same, even if I learned some things. But this is not a problem at all, and everybody is encouraged to apply. The only thing that we ask is that the joining people time zone should be close from the Paris time zone, which is the Central European time zone. This is something that is quite important just for internal organization. It's much easier to do that. So that's it for me. I would like to thank you for your attention, and of course, feel free to ask any question. And I apologize for my English, which is not as good as it was when I was at CERN. Thank you.
Thank you, Mathieu. That was super interesting. And don't worry about your English, it's absolutely fine. Now it's time for questions. I'm wondering whether anybody has a question for Mathieu about either the company, what it's like working at the company. Hi, Anuj. Yes, please go ahead.
I have a question regarding basically the technology itself, and the supply chain strategy that you had, which I couldn't grasp on your previous slide, the supply chain management. Yeah, already from there, or what's the strategy again regarding supply chain and how to convey and preserve basically regarding losses and supply chain? What do you expect any losses during its and preservation and conveyance?
So the idea is that we know, for example, how much grain we will get from the fields, or how much, for example, peas we will get from the field, and that we know that some of the surrounding plants will have a need of, I don't know, I say a number, but I don't know which one, 4 million tons, for example, a year, which is pretty huge, but something like that. And then they will know that, for example, in the area, they will have too much grain for their needs, and thus the aggregators will not be able to sell everything to that particular plant. So they will have to find some other markets to sell the grain. Or in the inverse way, for example, the plants will have the same needs, but there will be not enough grain in that area. Then they will know in advance that we have to rely on some, either to maybe shut down a production line, or to find grain in another area. So that's the idea.
Thank you. And do you focus on particular crops, specialized crops, or anything that?
Well, the idea is, of course, to be as more well as wide as possible, but it's complicated because we are a small team and crops are really different. So currently, we are really focusing on wheat, barley,
Wheat?
what we call the great cultures. So wheat, barley,
Okay.
maize, sunflower, and rapeseed.
So these are for conversion to oils, I suppose.
Yes,
Sunflower
exactly.
oil.
Yes. And in addition to that, we have also some interest in high quality, high variable cultures. So, for example, vineyards, sorry,
Yes.
and soy,
Okay.
beetroot, I think it's called, yes,
Interesting.
beetroot. So we have some insight that it would be really interesting for people doing that, but they are not ready yet to use Hyperplan.
And
And
how
actually, we are not ready to provide them as well much information on those crops.
maybe any exposure to probably crops like sugarcane for the production?
Yes, we don't have a lot of sugarcane in France, but we were contacted last year by the Brazilian company that was interesting to look at what we can do with the sugarcane. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your answer.
Thank you. Do we have, well, we haven't got any questions. Please raise your hand if you want to come on cam and ask your question. Perhaps Mathieu, I have a question for you regarding your recruitment process. So you said that for the time being, you've just closed some opportunities, but you're still looking for people. How does the recruitment process work?
So we first publish an offer depending on our needs. And thereafter, we spread the offer everywhere, including, for example, the one that I published a few months ago at CERN. It was a bit late, but still, we had plenty of people answering to that, and actually, few people were shortlisted from the CERN. And once we have, we start the recruitment process very, very soon. So meaning that once we have few resume, 2-3 resume, we start looking at it and interview people. So we have usually people that we select from the resumes goes up to the full recruitment process, meaning the three meetings with the leaders and the co-founders. And we try to be fast, but we are a small team and we don't have right now people dedicated to the human resources. So we try to be fast, but it's not always as fast as we would like. And we encourage people to be a bit patient if we do not answer within the week. And apart from that, what I can say, we always answer to people. And if some people were applied, for example, in the past months to the offer I proposed and I did not answer to them, I really want to apologize because we were a bit overwhelmed at that moment. So the process, yes, is the following. So you can send the resume after the offer has been published, and then you go for a round of meetings with the Hyperplan people.
Okay, so do you set tests or
No, currently no. It depends actually because, for example, I know that for the front end side, the leader at the beginning did not make any test. At some point, he thought that it would be a good idea. For the data science team that I am responsible of, I don't do any test because I don't think. A discussion is usually enough to assess the people. And for the other teams, data engineering and backend, I cannot say. I don't think they made any tests so far, but I cannot say if they will change that or not in the next month.
And are the interviews done online, or do people come in person? Well,
if people are close from Paris and they want to see the people in the office, they can, of course. Otherwise, there is no problem to do it remotely.
Okay. Thank you very much. I see that Jade has the hand up. Would you like to come on cam, Jade, and ask your question, please?
Thank you very much for your presentation. It was really interesting. I was wondering if you had a risk management division in the company right now, and if not, if it was a project to create one.
So we don't have a dedicated team on risk management right now. We are we are working with insurance. We are discussing a lot with insurance, and they are interested to do some risk management. So there will be we have some actions to do in our backlog, but I don't know when it will be addressed, and I don't think it will be a separate division. I think it will be part of the data science effort.
Thank you, Jade, for your question. Now, we also have a question from Mika. I'm not sure if Mika wants to or is able to. Oh, okay, I'll go for it and ask his question. So the question is, are you, or their question, are you a SaaS company with a service subscription model, or how do you make your, how do you make available your offering?
Yeah, that's true. So we have a SaaS company, and we are a SaaS company, and the business the business model is to make to give a license to our customers. And the license depends. It depends a bit of what the customer does. For example, we have one customer which is a seed company which is interested into the full France territory, so it pays a bit more the license than a small aggregator company that is working on the southwest of France.
Thank you, Mathieu. I hope that answers your question, Mika. So now we have Anna Monica, who's asked a question in the chat. I'm not sure whether Anna Monica is available to come on cam to ask it. If not, I can fire away. So the question is, how big is the data science team?
So we are currently 3.5 people. I say half because the CTO is sometimes doing some data science stuff. We will be 4 by the end of the year. And in addition to that, we have 2 data engineers, that are supporting us for the data management and data quality assessment.
Okay, thank you. There was also a second part. So do you have any computer vision or deep learning engineers?
So we have one that
Yeah.
is joining us in December.
Okay,
yes.
right. Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. Do we have any other questions? If not, I might have. I've got 2. So one is, what about recruiting people who are not EU citizens? Is that something that your company can do?
We can, in principle, we can. That would probably not be easy for us because we are not really administrative people. But if we are really interested into the person, yes, I think we can do that.
Okay, thank you. Khalidi, shall I think maybe I can ask the question. So how long do your resources stay with the company? I guess resources, you mean human resources?
Yeah, so far just one person left after 2 months because I think she was a bit scared by the amount of work, or she was not comfortable with the way we worked. Otherwise, everybody stayed from the beginning of their contract.
For the people that you've recruited and interviewed, what are the skills that are mostly lacking? I've 2 parts. So what are the skills that are mostly lacking that you would recommend people develop, especially those people who are coming from CERN? And then I'll ask my second one in a moment.
What we saw is for people that we unfortunately reject, some people were not did not work a lot with Python, the Python language, which is I mean, everything in data science is made in Python, so that is complicated if you did not touch a lot Python before, but it does not necessarily mean that we turn you off. It depends, of course, of every other skills. And apart from that, I think it was more on the feeling that we had with the people rather than the skills themselves. So if we see that people are eager to learn new things, even if they are not 100% let's say 100% efficient in computer vision, as myself, for example, I am not a computer vision scientist, so I have to learn everything from scratch. But if people are eager to learn, eager to are not afraid to work with dirty data, because actually it's really true that agricultural data are pretty dirty. If people are well, just motivated, humble, and well, I mean, if they show humility, I'm not sure it's the proper word in English, but if by humility I mean not thinking that they know everything, and not and if they are eager to adapt as well, then it will be fine.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question, the follow-up to that was, what emphasis do you put on soft skills?
So soft skills would be, I think, yes, humility is the first one. And if I would say two more, adaptability is a good one, and I would say good humor is the last one. I mean, we like people that are happy in general, and we do everything to make the people happy as well. So it's a human company, meaning that if you have, for example, some shopping to do or to go to the medics in the middle of the day, that's not a problem at all. You can do it. And we won't be on your back to check that you are working the full day. We trust the people in general.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. I just had perhaps one more question, if I may, Mathieu.
Sure.
I was wondering, how many competitors do you have at the moment?
So that question is complicated to answer because our competitors are competitors of a partial section of our service, but not on everything that we propose. So we have something like this. I think it's something between 8 and 10 competitors. But for example, we will on those 8 or 10 competitors, we will find only 3 or 4 of them that are able to give all the crop rotation within countries, and maybe 1 or 2 that will try to identify the sowing dates. So that's a question that is complicated to answer. We won't have a real competitor, but we have plenty of competitors that are able to do some part of what we are doing.
Okay. We have another question here in the chat, and that's to ask, so what types of dirty data do you process?
Well, so the field data are quite dirty, meaning that, for example, all the dates that we are using to train our models, for example, sowing dates, harvest dates, yield data, are coming from the fields. They are not really assessed in terms of quality. They are most of the time entered into a database into a database by the farmers themselves, meaning that there can be mistakes. They can be just one farmer says, okay, I don't want to fill 5 dates, so I put the same date for all my fields, which is probably not true. So that kind of stuff. We have a lot of uncertainties on our data, and in addition to that, we're working with living things, meaning that for 2 similar fields, you can look at all the data you want, but it won't be the same at the end.
Okay, thank you. I hope that answers your question, Anna Monica. Go on,
Yeah,
Anush.
any forward prospects for recruitment in terms of?
Currently, no. But I cannot say for the next month, for example, because we did not expect to have to recruit anybody last year, and actually we recruited up to 4 people. So it really depends of what will be going on for Hyperplan in the current months and in next year.
So that sort of follows on from what the question I was going to ask you, Mathieu, is can people contact you on alumni.cern and express their interest, send you their CVs, etc., and then
Of course,
be
they,
considered? Yeah.
yes, of course, they can always send me a CV. The answer, of course, I will look at the CV, and the answer that I will make is maybe if you ask me today, currently there is no open position, but for the future, yes, we are also looking at all the resumes and all the meetings that we made in the past.
Okay. So there, anyone who's interested, go ahead, contact Mathieu on alumni.cern, share your interest and your CV with him. And then who knows in the future? It seems like it's a company that's going to be growing. So fingers crossed there are some opportunities coming up. And I hope they can be filled by some CERN alumni. So I see now that we're coming up to 10 to 12. Unless there are any more questions, I'd like to finish and by saying a huge thank you to Mathieu for taking part in today's virtual company showroom.
Thanks to you for the invitation.
Thank you, and thanks for such an interesting presentation. Everybody else, thank you so much for joining us, and don't hesitate to send or to get in touch with Mathieu via alumni.cern.